Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Season 4. Episode 4.
Welcome back, friends, for an episode that really takes me back. Our guest today was a classmate of mine back in the day. We graduated together, and after high school, she went to college and ended up spending a good few years living out in the Minneapolis area. Now back in Eau Claire, it made a lot of sense to sit down and finally catch up. Welcome singer, songwriter, and now business owner of the new Seven Sons Vintage store here on Barstow Street, Savannah Smith.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, you're the one having me. We're down in your store, so this is pretty tight. I'd actually never been in this place. I was telling Misha, who's taking some photos of us, that I had looked at this place before too, like everybody, because it was sitting open for a little bit. But it's in kind of like the best location you can be right now.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's when Jonah and I were looking. Well, okay, let me rewind. I wasn't looking. Jonah had this idea that we needed to open a vintage store, and I was like, yeah, good. Yeah, sure. Let's do that. And then I think it was a week later, he was like, hey, I found a storefront. And we came in to look at it. And that was the first thing. He's like, we're not going to be on Water Street. We're not going to be here. We're not going to be here. We're going to be on Barstow Street. That's where he wanted to be. You know, he has Wintership. That's where the foot traffic is. It's historic. And I think it's being revived in a way that I never thought it would. Because remember in high school, it was dead in one ways, and there was nobody. I mean, it was a ghost town constantly.
Yeah. Well, I think it came down to Volume 1 and Phoenix Park. Like, those were the kind of the catalysts of all of a sudden, holy shit, there's cool things that are down here.
Totally.
And then everybody, it kind of also went hand in hand with the whole like hipster trend. Like, right? Like all of a sudden being like shopping locally, and in general, the whole hipster like vibe doesn't match with what a mall is.
Right.
It matches with like small little eclectic stores. So then all of a sudden it was cool to shop at all these places downtown.
Yeah.
So I wonder what it must have felt like to be one of those people that had one of these stores down here when it was a ghost town, and they still made a living, and then all of a sudden they started seeing people come in. Because you're right, like it's so much different. I know, because I skated down here all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? Skateboarding, like street skating is what we do. So I was down in this area all the time, and there was nothing. And now, if you're going to open a store, like this zone is for sure where you want to be. So yeah, congratulations on like the coolest spot.
Ooh,
and this huge big window too.
We love the window. That was the first thing. We built up the window before we touched anything else, because we wanted to show off our window. There's so many businesses that just kind of take it for granted a little bit, or they don't have the setup. But that's one thing we wanted to shine, was the front window. So
Yeah, you guys do really well with it. I mean, that was one of the reasons, like, when I looked at this place, this is a long time ago, obviously, but when I looked at this place, that was one of the things that I had, like, thought about was, dang, like, with this window space, you could do, like, a pretty crazy display that everyone's going to see, especially the way you guys have it lit up and everything. Like, this place just looks super cool from the outside, and obviously you did a lot of renovations. Let's step back just for a second, though. Let's step back for a second. For the people that are listening, in case they don't know who you are, because not everybody lives in Eau Claire, not everybody knows about the vintage store, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Savannah Smith, and I, like you said, I'm a new business owner. I'm also a singer-songwriter, and I have a day job for now, too, which is, I work at a middle school, so that's weird right now, but everything is. I was born and raised in Eau Claire. I guess, how deep do you want me to go into this?
We can go back.
I'm an Aquarius, 30 years old.
Well, those are the most important parts for sure. Also, though, quick, just in case, so the people are going to listen to this and they're going to want to know, like, how are they going to, like, look up all this stuff? So what's the best way for people to follow what you do, like the business, yourself, whatever, and how do they get in contact with you if all of a sudden they want to ask you a question from the show or whatever? I
would say Instagram has been my hub for both the store and my music. So my music Instagram is Savannah, SAVANNAHHH Smith. And then the store is Seven Sons Vintage, the number 7 Sons Vintage.
Thank you for spelling that out.
Yeah.
I guess I feel like never do. And every time I'm like, no one's going to know how you spell that. Now.
Right.
Especially if you got like underscores and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Put that out there and nobody's going to
2 H's. People are like 2H. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
See, when you got a last name like Smith, you have to compete with all the other Savannahs out there.
So. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, Chris Johnson had the same way. I mean, I don't even use a personal Instagram, but so like for my store, it's just Passion Board Shop. Like that totally works.
Yep.
But I was looking at trying to get the Instagram just Passion. and I keep getting jerked around by people. Like, it's like impossible to get a hold of it. This dude wants $4,000 to have the Instagram handle. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm sorry, but absolutely not. You know, but it was the same way with the podcast. It's so for this show, it's passion_pod on Instagram because there's a million things that, and they're all like Christ related. Anything that's like passion podcast, that's what all that is. So anyways, so yeah, you're an Aquarius, you're 30. We graduated from North in 2008. But really I want to start like talking about where like the music career thing is because I think that musicians are basically business owners anyways.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Like, we're going to be able to connect on a whole lot of different things. And I think obviously you've saw that going into business for yourself.
Yeah.
But music with where it started, I played like the saxophone and stuff because I had to in middle school. When did you start singing? Was it just like as a kid all the time?
Oh yeah.
Or
yeah.
like where did that all of a sudden become a thing you were doing a lot?
I mean, I've been singing, like you said, my whole life. I've always loved words, and I've loved, this is going to sound really narcissistic, but I've always loved the sound of my own voice, even my talking voice. So when I was a kid, I would just talk and make up words, and then it kind of turned into songs. Like I was writing songs when I was 5 years old. They weren't good. But I could still remember them. I have this weird memory when it comes to songs. And then in elementary school, I guess, was the first time I kind of focused that passion a little bit. I had a really encouraging music teacher in elementary school, and she was trying to get me into all these choirs, which I didn't do, but then would give me solos that I would lose friends over. And I stepped away from it in middle school because I got so self-conscious and shy. But then I remember, oh gosh, what year was it? I don't remember. But the first time singing in front of people was in high school. I sang Angel by Sarah McLachlan at the talent show. And I had sparkly shoes from Walmart on. And it was an experience that sticks in my head forever. Because it was the first opportunity I had to sing in front of people in a long time. But that was where it bloomed for me. And then Kyle Culver, do you remember Kyle?
Yeah.
He saw that and wanted to collaborate instantly. So we formed Kyle and Savannah, and that's kind of where I started actually writing songs. It kept rolling. I went to school for vocational rehab post high school and was bored out of my mind. I had taken all the music classes I could take and decided to transfer to Minneapolis, which is where I took my music career seriously. Again, with the support of many teachers and many classmates that were like, you can do this. Like, you have a gift and you should do this. And they really pushed me hard. And I didn't know that I needed that or that I could do it, because I feel like I'm rambling now. But, as a musician, until somebody kind of tells you you can do it, I feel like a lot of people doubt themselves and kind of hold back.
I don't think that's only music, though. Because, it's
sure,
the same way
yeah,
like when you talk about artists or the business thing, right? Like if all of a sudden Jonah like says something like, yeah, let's do this business, let's do this vintage store, versus if he had the opposite thing of like, do you really want to do a vintage store? It totally changes how easy it is to do. And I think for most people, it's themselves that get in their own way, not because they're not able to, but they don't have the confidence behind doing it. And that's that same thing of like the first time you do anything, right? The first time you sing in front of people is like nerve wracking. You're like, whoa. And then once you do it, the second time you're like, well, this is way easier than it was before. Right. Well, it's not. It's the same thing. It's just you have the confidence going into it. Totally. So that changed it quite a bit. You, at least for me, like so that talent show was at North, right? Yeah, I remember that because we went to school together. So I definitely saw that. So I'm glad that I get to share that moment with you. This was 15 years later.
Beautiful moment.
Yeah. But for the most part, all the times that I saw you sing, because we've been around the same people forever, was always with the ukulele. Like that was like a common thing. And like I went back and I listened to a lot of your music and stuff. So I've heard a lot of it. You're from Wisconsin. Why is the ukulele the thing that you were playing? That's like not really that typical around here.
Yeah, it was actually my best friend who got me playing ukulele. I fumbled around on guitar for years in high school, and in our dorm, she ordered a ukulele on eBay, and for whatever reason, they just threw in an extra crappier ukulele with it. So she gave it to me, and I was so taken by it and how easy it was to formulate chords and how easy it was to make it sound good. And I really used that as a platform to write. I was playing it and writing constantly. And like in turn, I think that actually got me a lot of gigs too, that it was small. People would be like, oh, play 10 minutes between these sets. And I mean, it was amazing. Like Basilica Block Party, they were like, City Pages was like, we're going to have you play, or shoot, it was Vitamin. Sorry if you're listening, City Pages. But they just popped me in between two main acts just because they wanted to fill the space with music. So that little peanut instrument kind of really paved a huge path for me. But yeah, it was all Kenzie's fault. And then, you know, we learned on YouTube together, and it was just felt right.
Well, shout out to Kenzie.
Yeah.
She rules. She's
does.
our main connection. She's been one of my best friends since forever as well. She actually did the original logo for my business, which is still on my store. So, and that was I drew on receipt paper when I was still working at Hellsberg Diamonds, like this little like idea of like, this is what I want my logo to look like. I took a picture on my cell phone and sent it to her, and she ended up making the graphic off that.
Her and
my other best friend, Damien, are now all of a sudden strangely together all these years later. So congrats, guys. That's cool. Music wise, like you said, you start playing shows a lot and stuff. What was like the first show that all of a sudden, like the first event that all of a sudden it was like, wait a second, this could be like a career thing, not just like I'm in college and playing coffee shops or whatever.
So I had a teacher, Scooter, who was ridiculously encouraging to everybody, not just me. His class was really inspiring for a lot of people. And what he would do, I think once a week, he would set aside 15 minutes for people in the class to come up and play music, play a track they're working on, sing a song, do whatever they were working on, and present it to a bunch of people. And I think from that point, it kind of gained traction where I had teachers sitting down with me and saying, you know, you should take this more seriously. So it wasn't technically a show, but I think that moment is when it sparked that I could actually do it. I could make a career out of it, more or less.
How old were you at that point?
I think I was 19 or 20.
Okay, and then
just a pup.
And then you had an EP come out, right?
Yep.
Which was how long after that? How old were you at that point?
I think that was I 21? But actually the same teacher had kind of taken me under his wing, and he was like, I've got studio musicians. You know, you have 4 good songs, solid songs. They need production behind them. And so we were lucky. We were at a school with recording studios at our disposal. Like we could just book out an amazing, you know, record, like studios that had produced platinum records, and we could just go in there for free. It was amazing. But so Scooter just called a bunch of favors in, helped me produce these 4 songs, and then that's how we put it out. So it was, again, I feel kind of spoiled that was my first recording experience, but it was like, it was incredible. I wish I could go back and relive those moments, because they were, I mean, as a budding artist who had recorded for the first time on my own, it was amazing.
Well, yeah, that's one of those things where like we just all have to recognize that not everybody starts with the same opportunities in America, unfortunately. Totally. Obviously, that's ideally the situation.
Right.
But rather than like ever, you know, getting down on yourself of saying like, well, it's not really fair that I had this advantage. Dude, if you look at almost any famous person ever that did anything, they all had somebody at some point in time help them out in a pretty incredible way.
Right.
So it's when you see those opportunities, and it's not that you're taking advantage of anybody anyways, it's just taking advantage of the opportunity itself that is there, and recognizing like, whoa, this is a cool window of time to be able to do this.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I just, like, the whole time I just kept thinking like, this is amazing. Like, how is this happening to me? Because, you know, I was in the mindset for so long that I would be playing shows at coffee shops to 14 people for the rest of my life. That hasn't changed a ton.
Well, not back in Eau Claire. So what happened? Because you did. I always like research my guests. I should feel like I shouldn't have had to research you at all, but I did anyways. I was like, Savannah Smith. Google. Cool. Not gonna find you. But so you had a story in Volume 1. This was a while ago. But you were sitting on an album like forever, and then you came out with this album called Leo, which I listened to, which was awesome. I've always been a fan of your music. But that album was awesome. What was that whole time frame? That's like a 9-year time frame of you being in Minneapolis. Were you traveling, doing shows off of 4 songs? Did you have a bunch of music you were playing that wasn't ever recorded? What was the trajectory of that until all of a sudden, why, you know, I'm out at a bar and I'm like, whoa, Savannah's like moving here? Why are you here? I thought you were gone.
Well, thanks. You mean, okay, so I guess my time in Minneapolis was such a stinking whirlwind. I hit the ground running right out of college. I was touring, like international tours, pretty fast out of it. And that was, again, David Preby was my booking agent and manager at the time. And I'm anxious about everything always. I have a lot of anxiety about everything. And he was like, you have to. He's like, you don't have kids. You don't have a husband. You don't have a steady job. You have songs. Go and do it. Just do it. And so he'd book these tours and I would just have to jump on them, and I would have to. I loved it. I'm not going to pretend I didn't, but I would do them. And I was touring. I was shopping the EP for the longest time. And I did have a set of other songs that I would play, and some of them kind of just fell to the wayside, and then some new ones came along. But basically I was broke. I had no money and no solid job. But I was living the damn dream. Truly I was. So when it kind of started to get a little more serious and I had hung up my touring hat, I wanted to do a record, and I kicked off a pledge music campaign, and it was so complicated. This is like, it's a little difficult to talk about because it's still a little sensitive for me. But what had happened is I got the money. I got the funding for it. I got the green light. Like, yes, we have this much money that people have pledged for you. It right away. And in the meantime, the person I was recording with was hopping around studios, so he wasn't settled in. That delayed the process, and by the time we ended up finishing up the record, where I was ready to record and he was ready to record, Pledge Music had folded, and I didn't see the rest of the money. And I was stuck at this point where I was so anxious, and I felt like I was letting a bunch of people down, and I had all of this riding on my shoulders, so it just delayed the album for so long. And one day I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go into debt over it because I can't sit on it anymore. I can't sit on this record anymore. So I just took the plunge, put a lot of money out of my pocket into it that I'll never see again. And I don't regret it. It was a headache. But it's out, and I love it. And I really did have to fall in love with the record again because it had been a point of stress for me for so long. And I think I'm finally there. And when I put it out, I was finally getting excited about it again. So we're on good terms again, me and Leo. So
perfect. Well, that's the perfect segment then to get into our first song. So when this is on the radio, the guests choose 3 songs throughout the show to play. So cool. It only makes sense since you play music and we're talking about Leo, which is fantastic. So I suggest everybody listen to it, especially if you just want to like drink coffee and sit outside with your plants or something, because that's what like I envision with it, or sitting on my porch.
Sweet.
Something like that. But anyways, what's your song choice from that record, one of yours? Which one are we going to play?
Can it be a sad one?
Whatever one you want.
Okay, yeah, I would say Brine.
Sweet and bright. you break and you crashed and the sinking in your chest. I would break you every time. It's always a chase, things we can't tame, crash but come close at the end of the day. And I'll always fight tight, you're sweet and you right, whether you be with or without me. Sweet and right, I would brave you every time. Sweet and right.
Well, thank you for sharing that song with us. Absolutely, though, people need to just go listen to the whole thing because I really, really enjoy that album. So, why'd you move back to Eau Claire?
It started, well, it's messy. Basically, I got a job and I wanted a slower lifestyle. I was working 3 or 4 jobs at the time that I left Minneapolis, and I was at my wit's end, and I was so drained and exhausted that I wasn't doing anything productive. I was spinning my wheels, working a service industry job, which, zero disrespect, because people in the service industry work their asses off, and it was a respectable job when I was doing it. I was just getting old. So I wanted to slow my life's pace down a little bit. So that's how it started. And then I was bouncing back and forth for 2 years before I settled down, and Jonah had a lot to do with that, but now I have a store, so I'm here for good.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to have you back in here. I mean, we kind of like took the little opposite paths there. And it's funny when I talk to people like, yeah, when you don't have kids in your 20s, that's when you can be broke and it doesn't matter that much to you because like whatever, you don't need that much to survive. And when it's like constantly exciting because these opportunities are coming up all the time, like it's enjoyable to just be like broke and have no commitments because you can kind of go wherever.
Yes.
So you got to do that. I got married at 21, had my first kid at 22. I was family man so young that I never really had much opportunity to do stuff like that. I didn't start traveling until years later. And now all of a sudden now I'm in this like weird transitional time where I don't like, believe me, I don't have any free time. It's not like that. But I have so much different time available because I'm divorced now. So I have my kids every other week. The weeks now with my kids, I'm like, I've never been an adult. I've never been an adult without children, like with just like a week to just travel, do whatever. Yeah. So like I road tripped to Ohio. I road tripped out to Colorado. I drove all the way out to Washington. I'm like, I've been like all over the place. So now all of a sudden I can kind of do that. But now you're settling down at least a little bit. I mean, no kids or anything, but you're finally here in Eau Claire.
The store is pretty much a kid.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that. But first I want to just quick like touch on the music one more time of like, what are you doing then here? Because it's not like you're doing tours or playing shows in Eau Claire. What are you doing with your music now?
So actually, the most recent thing I've done musically is teamed up with a former teacher of mine and bass player Barb Brinstead. So my teacher, Adam Levy, he was a songwriting instructor and just all around inspiration. He was very, again, encouraging of me as a young musician. And Barb is a freaking monster on the bass. She's so damn talented. So they asked me to join their. It was originally a cover band, and they were doing Laurel Canyon, really close harmonies, like big influences like Graham Parsons, Emmylou Harris, Dolly Parton, and it kind of blew up, and we started doing original music, and then we started writing original music, and last year we sat down and we recorded a whole record with Zoo School out in St. Croix Falls, and it blew up, and it was so well received. We released it during quarantine, which was a trip, but people were so hungry for music, I think, that it went wild. And right around that same time, local record stores in Minneapolis were opening up again. So we had distributed them throughout the city, and they've been selling out left and right. It's just been incredible. Adam's a really prolific songwriter, so he'll come with these beautiful, polished songs every day. Like, I swear he sends audio clips every day, and they're just, every single thing he writes is beautiful. And then Barb is a great songwriter. I scrambled on the last record, and right before we left to go record, like within hours of getting in my car and driving to St. Croix Falls, wrote a song that actually turned out pretty good. But the focus I've been putting on my music has kind of shifted to that. I guess I was getting a little overwhelmed with the solo stuff, so I found a home in those two. It's called Turn, Turn, Turn. I don't know if I said that, but that's been my main focus lately, and it's been such an incredible experience.
So where can somebody go listen to that? Is it just like Spotify, or what? Like, what's the easiest way for somebody to go find that?
So our website is turnturnmpls.com, but we've got, our music is everywhere. It's even at Revival Records too. We've got a couple vinyl and CDs there. So, but yeah, we're on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, all the
Yeah, it like streams to
streaming
everywhere.
platforms. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like how it is for the podcast. Like,
Yeah.
the only thing I'm not on is YouTube because I don't have any like video. At some point, I just gotta like throw a photo up and then just have the audio.
At least have the channel. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the many things I got to get to. But let's switch talk a little bit to Seven Sons. You're just talking about the record store, which is down the street, because again, this is like the coolest area to be in at this point.
It is.
What motivated you to change the direction? Because like I said, the skills translate a lot, I think, from music, because really like you're promoting yourself and you're selling a product, which is your music. So it's like, it is similar, but what motivated you to change the direction and then do something as big and time consuming as a retail store?
I think when you're a vintage lover, it's kind of ingrained in you. And to go back to touring, that's what I would do in my downtime. I would go to thrift stores and garage sales and, estate sales, anything I could, and it would be a big treasure hunt for me. And it's so regionally different, the stuff you're finding in the Appalachian Mountains versus in Texas versus Colorado. Like, every single place is so different, the stuff you're finding. Like, it's like Pendleton, Haven, you find wool flannels. Out in West Virginia, it's square dancing dresses. Like, it was always fascinating to me. So when I was out on the road, that's what we would do before my shows. And I think even before that, I would always go out vintage hunting with my mom. So I've always had a huge love for it. And again, when Jonah and I started dating, he brought it up pretty early on and said, because he saw my collection of clothes that I'm doing air quotation marks, going to sell online. He's like, you got to do something with these, but in an excited way, not like a shaming way, like you have a treasure trove here. And so I put my collection in, he put his collection in, he found a storefront, and we opened Seven Sons. And, I had already had a huge back knowledge of vintage and vintage clothing, especially dresses. And I had, retail jobs left and right when I was growing up in college. So it was natural. It was a lot of work, but it was pretty seamless opening.
I think it's cool that because you come from music where you had to do all this promo stuff and using social media and stuff, it's cool that you had those skills going into it, because a lot of people opening up a business don't understand how valuable those tools are or how big of a part of the business is. They think that if they just have a cool product in a cool location, people are going to buy it. But half of it comes down to promotion itself. Like, you have to have an image, you have to be somebody. So getting into that, just because most people listening, I would assume, haven't been here physically yet, maybe they walk by and they're like, this place is cool. Can you try to paint a picture in somebody's mind? What is Seven Sons? What does it look like for somebody to just kind of like close their eyes, think about it, and give it a little sweet virtual tour?
Yeah, it's overwhelming in the best way. Like, you walk in and it's just little pods of collections. Like, to your right, there's a huge wall of boots, and to your left, there's a huge wall of hats. There's dead animals everywhere, taxidermied dead animals, not like carcasses. I mean carcasses, but stuffed ones. And then everything is broken down and sorted by color. It's just it's eye-catching, and there's so much to see. I don't know. It's a wonderland, and I think that's probably the best way we found to describe it. Like, if you like old stuff, you walk in here and your jaw drops. and you'll probably start salivating. It's just hordes, but neatly sorted hordes.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's so cool. You have this huge window front with all these massive, like, awesome plants and stuff that just walking and you look in with it all lit up and it's like, what is this like eclectic universe that's in here? I need to go explore and see like what kind of treasures that I can find, which is basically what you guys are doing, is just selling lost treasures to people, which is super tight. And you guys are really good with like your whole Instagram platform and stuff too, of doing like the Instagram sales of things, like the one-off things. You do all kinds of cool stuff with that.
Yeah. It's been really fun, especially to flex those muscles when I've been a consumer for so long of vintage clothing. It's like now I'm the one selling beautiful dresses to people. Like, I'm the one that's bringing you the stuff you want.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like a turn of the switch. But you guys, I mean, sometimes this is just how it works, right? The creative juices hit, and sometimes it's not the best time to do it or whatever, or an opportunity pops up. Why in the world did you open up a vintage store during the pandemic? Because this has been the worst year for like every retail store in existence.
That wasn't the intention, obviously. We had gotten the storefront in January. And then in typical pandemic fashion, I had gotten super sick in February and was just sick through probably April. And, you know, the whole city was shut down. Retail businesses weren't open. So we were kind of on eggshells just waiting for the go-ahead. And obviously, as soon as we had the go-ahead, we had to actually get the store ready to go. It was sitting in a state of disaster for a long time. We had papered up the windows and there was paint and wood stain and clothes everywhere for the longest time. And then we slowly started to take it more seriously. Of course, we had a lot of downtime too to start painting, and lime green is really hard to paint over, which is the color of the walls before. So painting took the most time, I think. But then as soon as we got the go-ahead for retail stores to start opening, we had a 3-week turnaround before we got everything open. And on our soft opening, I was still pricing clothes. I mean, it was, I cried a lot. But honestly, for it being a pandemic, the community has still shown up in a big way. Not only our opening month was just nuts, but we have a huge store, so we're lucky. I mean, it lends itself to social distancing, and it would take a lot to get to capacity in here. But you know, we did little drawings, and we've tried to engage the community as much as we can, and they've been really, really receptive to it. So I just try to remind myself that on the slow days, we're still in the middle of a global pandemic, and you know, looking for the light at the end of the tunnel when we can have days where people are in the store trying stuff on, hugging their friends. Like, I dream of those days, but
well, thankfully you, between like with all your music stuff and then Jonah with owning like dope tattoo shop that everybody respects, you guys are so much a part of the downtown community, which there's such a culture in Eau Claire with the downtown community, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I'm very thankful to be a part of too, that like there's so much overwhelming support for everybody that's down here. Like, you don't even have to be a part of the crowd. Once you're down there, you're part of the crowd, and everyone just kind of wants to take care of you. So I've seen a lot of that too, like throughout this whole time. I've seen, I mean, when people were getting their stim checks and everyone knew that businesses were screwed, like I had a bunch of people come in that didn't even need anything, and they're like, I got my check, so I just want to spend some money because like I know you guys could use it, which is really cool. I have a question though about like this, because this is totally different than me. I can just order merchandise. Yeah. I mean, not during the pandemic, I can't get stuff because stuff isn't made and whatever, but what are you going to do when you sell through a bunch of your collection? Are you guys just going to close up for a month and go travel and buy stuff? Like, how do you continue to curate and like have product when it's vintage stuff you had to find?
Yeah, we had a panic moment after our first week because stuff was flying, and we didn't have a back stock at that time. So the whole summer, I spent multiple days during the week just sourcing. I would just go out. People bring us a lot of stuff too. But I was posting ads everywhere. I was talking to everybody I knew, asking if they had a grandma with a closet that hadn't been touched in years. And yeah, it's a constant job just finding clothes. It is. And it's, you know, I'm a pretty thorough hunter, so I can find them easy, but it's time consuming for sure. But I love doing it. So it's motivating. I don't know. I hope we don't ever run out of stock.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's nice that you guys have so many other things going on. You
Totally.
know, with your music and with Jonah's shop and stuff. Like, there's other avenues. If all of a sudden there's a dry spell in one part of the business things that you're doing, you can be putting energies into other things. It's
Right.
kind of the same way with my shop right now of like finding sponsors and stuff for the shop. Like, it's a very time-consuming thing. Finding the right guests that I want to get to tell the story I'm trying to tell throughout a season can be really time-consuming. There's a lot that goes into that. But when I have a slow day at my store, then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I got a lot of Instagram work done today. This is cool. And then other times I'll have a week where I don't get anything done. So, I mean, you know what I mean, for the show. So it's nice that I can kind of like spend my time where I need it to be. You know, there's like a little bit of flexibility with that. So I'm excited to see what music you keep making. I'm excited to see like where this store ends up going. I can't wait until we have a summer without the pandemic to see like events and stuff that can happen. But we'll get to that stuff. So. I need to like learn way more music. Honestly, like I'm constantly one of those people that are on Spotify that I'm like trying to find new shit. And it seems like Spotify doesn't get that. And no matter what radio station I play, half of it or more is stuff that's already on my liked playlist. I'm like, my liked playlist only has 200 songs, dude. Figure this out. So I actually get stoked this time of year when all of a sudden there's all the like, here are your Spotify things. I'm going to put some on Instagram. I'm stoked because I'm like, I don't even know who these people are. So I want to check it out. So talking about things that I like don't know, which is a whole lot of stuff. I want to talk about what is something about Savannah Smith that in general people just don't really know and might surprise them.
I do leather work, which people know kind of, but more of it. And I'm a really big rock and stone nerd. Before I fell in love with music, I really wanted to be a geologist, and so I took all these rock classes I could take. My parents took me to rock and gem shows. When I go out and see them in Arizona, they kind of plan these little rock hounding expeditions for us, which is really sweet. I guess that's kind of cool.
You have a big collection of rocks then?
I do.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite one? Because each like all the different rocks have like all these different uses, right? Labradite and whatever else.
Yes.
So which is the one?
Can you tell I'm excited to talk about it? So I got it for myself right after we opened. It was like I'm gonna treat myself. I've been working my ass off. I got it's a quartz point with hematite inclusions, which means it looks like there's a dark silver cloud in it, and then it has an anhydro bubble. So there's actually liquid trapped inside of it, and you can see the bubble moving around in it. It's so beautiful, and I've wanted one for so long, and I'm obsessed with it.
That's awesome. I need to get like another random. I don't have any like random collections.
Oh
really.
my gosh,
I need to start collecting stuff. Another random question, just because I've been trying to think of stuff. So I got to this point in my life where all of a sudden I'm like, I don't want to be afraid of anything anymore. So I started just adding all this stuff to my bucket list. I'm like, I got to do this. I got to do this. I wanted to get to a point where like I've done, or I enjoy trying new things so badly that I was just like brainstorming forever of like, what are things I haven't done? Even if I didn't have a lot of interest, what's something I haven't done that I can just go do tomorrow? What are some things on your bucket list that you've just been like waiting for?
Oh my gosh, this is a hard one too. So I was a really big dreamer out of college, and I did so much of what I wanted to do. Ugh. Now I sound lame because I don't have a bucket list. Go to Dollywood. We were going to go to Dollywood last year. That's something I've never done. I don't know. This is hard. I guess like, you mean like conquering fears or just like
anything that you wanted to do?
Anything I wanted to do. What would it be? I don't have interest in like skydiving or anything like that because that just scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I'm like, I'm afraid of heights. So I was like, I just got to go skydiving. Bungee jumping is another one on my list of like, I know it's terrifying. I just got to do it because I've never done it.
I'm not a thrill seeker like that. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I had this bucket list that I carried around with me for years and years and years. And then I lost it and found it again. And I think there was one thing that I didn't do, and it was something stupid like wear polyester pants in public, which I still have yet to do. Can that be my answer? Now, that was like the most Grammy answer ever.
I like that.
I need a new bucket list, clearly.
Apparently, yeah. We gotta sit down over at the Trap, a couple doors down, and just like write down ideas and drink beers or something.
Yeah. Wow. My level of lameness has skyrocketed through the roof.
Yeah, you went from being incredibly cool to all of a sudden like you're just like an empty shell at this point.
I don't know. I've done it all.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk quick shout out time though, because everybody deserves to have a shout out time. You don't accomplish all the things that you've accomplished by yourself. That's obviously just not possible because nobody knows how to do everything. Who are the people in your life that have been the most important to your personal and professional growth?
There are so many people. Obviously, Jonah has been incredibly encouraging for everything going on. My parents are my biggest fans, my biggest supporters. They've never been limiting to me. And then I can list them all off by name, but it would take me like half an hour. But my circle, my group of people, I'm surrounded by a lot of really, really strong, incredible women. A lot of business owners, a lot of business-minded people, a lot of, musicians that are just spearheading the industry and doing whatever the hell they want to do. I guess they're kind of my rock. And actually, even just today, I was talking to them about being self-employed like 100%, and they had amazing advice. And they're like, "You got to do it. You got to do it. We believe in you. You're killing it. You got to do it." So, yeah, I don't know. I'm fortunate. I have so many good people in my life.
Well, so I was talking to Leighton Heegard about it. She was a guest on the show on this season too. And I was asking her like how her social media was blowing up so much because she went from like 15,000 to 59,000 in like 8 months or something crazy. Yeah, it just like blew up. And she was talking about how like, it's just about being like open and honest about yourself, and like people are really attached to that. But that plays a huge part in music, in business, and anything where it's like a collaborative effort to make things work. If you don't cool guy people and you just put yourself out there, that's my term that I like to use is cool guy people.
You don't even have to explain it. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But if you don't cool guy people and you just like open and honest about yourself and say, "Hey, these are the things I'm doing really well. I like could really use some help on these types of things." And you're not necessarily asking favors. You're willing to offer whatever in exchange. But if you're just open about like what it is that you need help with, it's like kind of amazing how many people will put their hands out to help you.
Oh my gosh.
So many people.
So many people.
Yeah. And if you're willing to be open about that and help others too, all of a sudden it's like you thought you were self-employed, meaning like by yourself. No, not really.
Right.
Like there's so many people around to help you with like anything. If you're just being willing to like be humble enough to say, "I don't know what to do in this situation.
Right.
Who might be able to give me some advice?"
Right.
It's pretty awesome. I've had a lot of people like that too.
It's really amazing to realize that too. Like there are days that I'm just sitting in my car and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like I couldn't have hired these people. Like why? They're just in my life voluntarily."
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's people want to help somebody that is genuine and hardworking. And that's like the easiest thing you can do is just be yourself anyways and do stuff that you want to do. And then people want to help you with that type of stuff anyways. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like a blessing that you deserve. It's weird. It's really, really sweet. So what should we expect to see / hear from you with like your music, Seven Sons, the coming months, years, whatever? Are there projects you're currently working on that we should expect to come out? Like what's going to happen now that everyone's going to be following you?
Well, Seven Sons is opening a website, and we had kind of talked about this during a break. I'm just going to tell people that there's dialogue behind the scenes too. And I hesitated to like promote it because I just don't know when it's going to happen, but it's in the works. We've done a few photo shoots and have inventory set aside for it. So that'll be happening probably within the month. I'm going to knock on wood because I hope it happens soon. So it's going to be a huge outlet for us, I think, just because it's reaching a broader market. Of course, I want to keep it accessible to the locals too, but there's just some things that'll sit here forever unless we put them out there for, the Motorhead collector that's in California. So that'll be fun and stressful, but great. And then also Turn is writing material for a new record too. So again, no end date for that, but those two move pretty quick. So I'm sure it'll be within the year.
Cool.
Yeah.
In this episode, we're recording right now. This is the very beginning of December. December 2nd, I think, is today. So this will come out sometime. January is when the episodes will start coming out. So it'll be coming out over the winter when, shutdowns might be happening during that time frame. So we'll see what's happening. But I also did a website recently. I mean, in general, I think as a business owner, you need to recognize that there's a lot of tools available.
Mm-hmm.
You need to recognize when to use the right tool for the right job,
Yes.
and sometimes the website isn't the right tool, for the job. In your case, when you're talking about like, I found this really awesome piece, but it's not going to sell here, but I know it's worth this, then all of a sudden a website's that thing. So,
Right.
so for like my store, and I'll just like throw this out so people understand, it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to sell a lot of stuff online for Passion Board Shop. It doesn't. That being said, it's because the profit margins are really low on hard goods, on boards, wheels, trucks, whatever. There is very little profit margin on it to begin with, and shipping those items is exceptionally expensive. I'm not going to have the same kind of availability as like a skatewarehouse.com or something. It's not possible. I don't make money when somebody buys a board for me online and I ship it. I just don't. And it takes me time and energy to do it. So that's not really the avenue for me to do it. However, with the podcast, that's a different thing now. So you can look passionpod.org. There's a ton of different stuff. All my artwork, I do a lot of different digital art and stuff. It's all on there. You can buy hoodies, you can buy t-shirts, whatever. You can donate to the show. That all of a sudden is a tool now that is useful to me. That wasn't really useful to me before.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So like that's something that I'm pretty excited about. I always like to end, or like now that we're getting close to the end of the show, I always like to share some kind of experience, and I'm like running out of them because I've done a lot of really fun stuff, but like it's been a lot of episodes.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's hard for me to have all these really cool like stories. But in general, when you live like a little bit more unique life because you're putting your energy into something that isn't like your regular 9-to-5 thing, it puts you in like kind of just different situations where really cool things get to happen.
Yeah.
If you had one story that you get to share with us, one thing that happened, whether it was when you were touring or whatever, that was just like really awesome and you're really thankful happened, what's the story that you're going to tell?
Oh my gosh. I've had so many amazing things happen on the road, and just my music has landed me in so many amazing situations. Okay, so I would say I've grown to be a really big fan of Tyler Childers, and he's a modern country artist, but he really like hones in the old school country sound. And this story is so confusing but so funny. So I had toured in Lexington, Kentucky, and when I toured, I had this little stenograph notebook where people would just write their name and their email down to be on my email list. And on my last tour ever, actually, I kind of folded up the notebook and put it away, whatever. So in Lexington, I had an amazing time, like so much fun. This bluegrass band was playing. Everybody there was so sweet. We like connected with this group of people and drank hot toddies the whole night, and it was so fun. I've never laughed that hard. This bar was like this perfect little dive bar. It was just such an incredible, it was one of those experiences that are like burned into my memory forever. Well, I was having a really bummer night not so long ago, probably about 6-7 months ago, maybe a year ago, anywhere in that range. And I had dug out my old songwriting notebooks for inspiration because I'm like, I used to be able to write a song. I needed that spark again. And I found my old tour log, my old email list notebook, and I flipped the page open to the Lexington, Kentucky page, and one of the people that we had made good friends with that night was Tyler Childers, and I had no idea. And now years later, I had been, going to all of his shows in the region, and it was such a cool moment to me to be like, whoa, he was awesome. We made friends with him. He's a fan. Like, I sold him a record, one of my records. So he has my record. It just kind of all brought it full circle. I don't know. It was like finding the notebook was probably just as incredible for me as having that experience in Lexington, Kentucky. It was just this whole big experience that came full circle. And I found it exactly on a night when I needed to see something like that. Like, you still got it. It's good. It's fine.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I talk about self-care and stuff, like mental health. I bring it up pretty often on this show, but people, like, I don't think they realize, especially people in positions like him, like how big of an impact you can have with such a small action.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And 100%. That's why I always try to tell people, like, dude, if you like somebody's store, or if you like somebody's music or their artwork or whatever, like, write them a review.
Right.
Dude.
Right.
Because like when you wake up, and I'm sure you've been having this now, but for my store forever, that's been happening. When I wake up, not that it happens every day, but in general, like, I've had that experience of I wake up, check my email, and there's a 5-star Google review, and I'm like, hell yeah. Like, I'm going to have a good day because this person just wrote like, oh, Chris was really great with my kid, whatever.
Yeah.
And like, it took them no amount of time and I'm just automatically in a really good mood now.
Oh, and that small action, like you said, does so much, not only for us, like it's validation, but it's good for the store. It's good for the business. It's good for the brand, the product, whatever. It really boosts because so much is digital and people live by reviews like Yelp and Google,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was like the next question I was going to ask because people all the time, they ask me like, man, I love the show. What can I do? How do I sponsor an episode? Whatever. Like, yes, you can sponsor an episode. We can figure something out. Just hit me with a DM or whatever. But there are so many ways to support people that aren't necessarily financial, right? Like financially, obviously somebody can come in here and spend $1,000 and that's going to help you out. Everyone knows that. That's great. But what are the other ways that people can best support you, your store, your music moving forward? What can they do to try to help you out?
I think my favorite route is when people find something they love from the store and post a picture in it and share it on their social media. That connects us to the clothes, but it also, like, it's so stupid, but I'm so emotionally invested in all these clothes. When I see them in happy homes on people, it brightens my day, but it also gets our name out there. So as silly as it is, and as much as you see those memes that are like, support is free, sharing a post costs nothing, it makes a huge difference, especially during promotions and sales. And, when our website is out, sharing to your story, to your page, whatever, tagging, it's, especially in the world we're living in, like the digital support is king right now.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
So I tell everybody, I mean, you can find us on Apple, like Passion Pod. You can write a review. You can write a review about my store. You can go to passionpod.org. There's like t-shirts and stuff. You can make a monetary donation of $1 and write a message saying like, hey, I appreciated this episode, whatever. But really, like if you don't have money, it's real easy to share the show with somebody. So anybody that does that, like that's a huge help. Honestly, like people who follow and buy your stuff and people who follow like what I do, their friends are like-minded and their friends will probably gain value from knowing about these things. Yep. We just don't have the capability and the power to just let everybody know that we exist. So like we kind of need everybody else's help to do that. Yeah. So any last words? What else do you want to say? Anybody else that you want to say, hey, I love you, any message you want to give anyone?
Oh, this is like a Sunday night I'll request love song part now, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. I guess I just want to reiterate my appreciation for Eau Claire. Like, holy shit, this is not the city I grew up in. It's a totally different ball game. I think even when I was commuting back and forth, I still felt very much like an outsider. And since opening the store and meeting people and seeing, community members and other businesses come in and support, and just even if with just words of encouragement, it's so comforting, and it definitely feels like my home again too. So I just have endless appreciation for Eau Claire. I don't think I ever saw myself moving back, but now that I'm here, I'm like, okay.
How cool
this is good.
How cool is it going to be in 10 years when we're like the old business owners down here and we see all the 20-somethings opening little stores and we're the ones giving all the encouragement? Yeah, I mean, I imagine I'll be here for that. So hopefully you'll be here for that too.
Yeah, I hope so.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.